The metallic taste came first. Copper and electricity, flooding my mouth like I'd bitten into a battery. Then the sound, a high-pitched ringing that wasn't coming from anywhere external. It was inside my skull, vibrating against bone. My vision didn't go black, it went white, sterile white, hospital corridor white, but I wasn't in a hospital yet. I was in my home office, mid-sentence, recording another video. The camera's red light was still blinking when my body forgot how to stand. Let me back up, because the irony of what I'm about to tell you isn't lost on me, and it shouldn't be lost on you either. My name is Julian Mercer, 42 years old. For the last decade, I'd made a comfortable living tearing apart religious influences on YouTube. Not the polite, let's agree to disagree kind of critique. I went for the throat. Televangelists, prosperity gospel preachers, Instagram mystics selling $500 frequency codes. I exposed them all with surgical precision. My channel had 780,000 subscribers. My catchphrase was simple. Faith is the anesthesia that keeps you numb to reality. I was a man of logic, a man of reason. I'd studied philosophy at Berkeley, taught critical thinking for 7 years before the university board decided my methods were too aggressive for sensitive students. They let me go, so I took my aggression online, where it paid better anyway. God wasn't real to me. God was a coping mechanism for people too weak to accept the randomness of existence, and I made sure everyone knew it. The day it happened, I was filming a response to some pastor who claimed he'd been healed by divine light. I remember my exact words, because they're the last thing I said before my brain tried to end my journey. If your God is real, let him prove it. Let him strike me down right now for blasphemy. I'm waiting. I smiled at the camera, cocky, untouchable. Then my head exploded. That's what it felt like. Not a headache, a detonation. Like someone had planted dynamite behind my left eye and flipped the switch. I tried to reach for my desk, but my arm wouldn't respond. My legs buckled. The floor came up fast, and I remember thinking, with absurd clarity, "Don't hit the camera, that's a $3,000 rig." I hit the camera. The world tilted sideways. I could see my bookshelf. Dawkins, Hitchens, Nietzsche, all those beautiful spines full of beautiful arguments, but they were sliding away like a photograph being pulled underwater. Someone was screaming, high-pitched animal. It took me 3 seconds to realize it was me. Then the pain stopped. Just stopped. And that's when it got strange. I was still in my office, but I wasn't on the floor anymore. I was above it, floating, no, not floating, existing 3 feet higher than I should have been, looking down at a man convulsing on hardwood, foam bubbling from his lips, eyes rolled back until only the whites showed. The man was me. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt annoyed. This isn't how aneurysms work, I thought. You don't get to watch yourself have one. This is a hallucination. Oxygen deprivation. The brain's last desperate fireworks show. But if it was a hallucination, it was the most detailed one ever constructed. I could see everything, the coffee stain on my shirt, the grey in my beard I'd been meaning to dye, the way my fingers were curled like claws, scratching at nothing. I tried to move back into my body, willed myself down. Nothing happened. Then I heard the sirens, distant, getting closer. My neighbor must have called 911. Good. This would all be over soon. They'd restart my heart, pump me full of drugs, and I'd wake up with a hell of a story about neurological misfires. Except my heart wasn't the problem anymore, because something was pulling me. Not physically. There was no hand, no rope, no force I could identify. But I was moving, away from my body, away from the office. The walls didn't dissolve. I just passed through them like they were made of smoke. I could see my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, standing in my driveway, phone pressed to her ear, crying. I tried to shout, "I'm fine. I'm right here." But I had no mouth, no lungs, no sound. The pulling intensified. I was accelerating. My house shrank below me. Portland spread out like a circuit board. Streets, cars, people, all so small, so irrelevant. The sky should have been above me. Instead, I was sinking through it. Down. No, not down. Inward. Like reality had a trapdoor I'd never noticed, and it was swallowing me whole. The light changed, not darker, emptier. The blue sky drained of color. The city vanished. I was suspended in something that wasn't quite space, wasn't quite nothing, grey, formless, silent. And cold. Not temperature cold. Cold like absence. Like standing in a room where every warm thing has been surgically removed. Laughter, hope, memory, connection. This was cold that had texture, weight, intention. I tried to call out again, tried to pray. And yeah, I know how that sounds coming from me, but desperation makes hypocrites of us all. Nothing answered. The grey deepened, thickened. I realized with creeping horror that I wasn't moving through this place. I was arriving at it. This was destination, not hell with fire and demons. Something worse, something I didn't have a name for. The void. And the most terrifying part, somewhere deep in my consciousness, in a place I'd spent 42 years ignoring, I recognized it. I'd been building this place my whole life. Time didn't exist in the void, but suffering did. I don't know how long I floated there. Seconds, years, eternities folded into themselves. There was no ground beneath me, no sky above, just endless grey stretching in every direction, thick as fog but solid as concrete. I couldn't move forward, couldn't move at all. I was suspended in nothingness like an insect trapped in amber. The silence was the worst part. Not quiet. Silence. The kind that presses against your eardrums until they ache. The kind that makes you realize how much of your sanity depends on sound, traffic, breathing, the hum of electricity. Here, there was nothing. No echo when I tried to scream, no vibration when I thrashed against invisible walls. I was alone, completely cosmically alone. And then I realized I'd always been alone, even surrounded by 780,000 subscribers, even in lecture halls full of students hanging on my every word. I'd built walls so high that nothing could reach me. Not love, not connection, not even the possibility of being wrong. That's when the review started. It didn't announce itself. There was no angelic guide, no movie screen. Instead, I was suddenly inside my memories, but not as myself. I was experiencing them from the other side. The first one hit like a freight train. I was my mother, lying in that hospice bed, tubes snaking from my arms, morphine dripping into veins that had forgotten how to carry hope. But I wasn't feeling my pain. I was feeling hers. The physical agony of cancer eating through bone. Yes, but worse. The emotional devastation of watching her son's face harden every time she mentioned faith. The way Julian, the way I, would sigh with theatrical exhaustion whenever she tried to pray with me. "Mom, you're wasting your last days talking to a ceiling." I'd said that. I remembered saying that. At the time, it felt like tough love, protecting her from false comfort. But now, inside her dying body, I felt what those words actually did. They didn't free her. They isolated her, made her final weeks lonelier, made her question if her only child would be okay after she was gone, or if the anger would consume him. The memory shifted. I was my ex-wife, Sarah, sitting across from me at our kitchen table 3 years into our marriage. She was crying again, because I'd spent another evening systematically dismantling her friend's belief in meditation. "Why do you have to make everything a battlefield?" she whispered. And I felt her exhaustion, the bone-deep tiredness of loving someone who couldn't let anyone believe in anything beautiful, the slow death of hope that came from sharing a bed with cynicism. Memory after memory, rapid fire, relentless. I was the young student who'd come to my office hours, nervous, asking if I thought there might be something more than materialism. I'd laughed, not cruelly. I thought I was being educational. But inside his chest, I felt his shame, the way my laughter closed a door in his mind that he'd been trying to open. I was Mrs. Chen, my neighbor, who'd invited me to her grandson's baptism. I'd declined with a smirk and a lecture about indoctrination. Inside her heart, I felt the sting, not offense, sadness that I was so isolated, so defended, so scared. Scared. That's what it all was, wasn't it? The void showed me the pattern, every dismissive comment, Every debate where I went for humiliation instead of understanding. Every relationship I'd sabotaged the moment someone suggested I might not have all the answers. I wasn't defending reason. I was defending against vulnerability, against the possibility that my mother's death meant something I couldn't control, against the terrifying idea that love, messy, irrational, unscientific love, was more real than any argument I'd ever constructed. I'd spent 23 years building a fortress of logic, and the void was showing me that I'd built it so well, I'd locked myself inside. Then something changed. The grey began to pulse, not with light, with presence. I wasn't alone anymore. I couldn't see her, couldn't hear her, but I knew her the way you know your own heartbeat. Mom. Not her body, not her voice, but her essence. Everything she'd been before cancer, before suffering, before I'd disappointed her with my anger. Pure, unfiltered. Love without condition. She didn't speak in words, but I understood her perfectly. You think I'm angry at you? I never was. I was afraid for you. The presence wrapped around me like warm water, and for the first time since arriving in the void, I felt something other than isolation. I felt seen, not judged. Seen. Every sharp edge, every wound, every terrified thought I'd disguised as intellectual superiority. Then came the revelation that shattered everything. This place isn't punishment, Julian. It's reflection. The void wasn't a location. It was a frequency. The external manifestation of my internal state. Every thought I'd ever had that pushed people away. Every moment I'd chosen superiority over connection. Every time I'd mocked someone's hope. I'd been broadcasting a signal. And that signal had built this place particle by particle, year by year. Hell wasn't something God sent you to. Hell was what you became when you spent a lifetime refusing love. The void was mine. I'd constructed it, decorated it with cynicism and furnished it with isolation. And when my body ended its journey on that office floor, my consciousness went to the only place it knew how to exist, alone. But here's what broke me. I didn't have to stay. The presence, Mom, God, love, whatever name your frightened mind needs to give it, showed me the truth. The void had a door. It had always had a door. But the door only opened from the inside, when you finally stopped defending, stopped arguing, stopped insisting you were right about everything. When you surrendered to the possibility that you'd been wrong about everything. I wept. Not with eyes, I had no body. But something in my consciousness cracked, and through that crack poured 23 years of grief I'd been too proud to feel. I'm sorry, I whispered into the grey. Mom, I'm so sorry. And the void began to change. The grey didn't disappear, it opened. Like someone had taken a scalpel to the fabric of nothing and carved a wound of light. Not blinding, inviting. Warm. The kind of warmth that doesn't just touch your skin but reaches into the frozen parts of your soul you forgot existed. I moved toward it. Not walking, flowing. The presence that was my mother guided me, not with hands but with intention. And as I got closer to that light, I felt others. Thousands of them. Millions. Consciousnesses humming at frequencies I'd spent my entire life denying existed. This was it. The other side. The place every religion tries to describe and gets approximately 3% correct. Home. Real home. And I wanted to stay so badly it hurt. But the presence stopped me at the threshold. Not yet. 2 words, gentle but absolute. No, I said, thought screamed. I can't go back there, you don't understand. I ruined everything, I hurt everyone. I built a life around being right, and I was wrong about everything that mattered. The presence didn't argue. Instead, she showed me something, a vision, not of my past but of my potential future. I saw myself at a coffee shop, older, greyer, sitting across from a young man with familiar pain in his eyes, the pain of someone who'd lost faith in everything good. And I watched myself not lecture him, not dismantle his defenses with logic. Instead, I listened. And then I said, I used to think strength meant never being wrong. Turns out, real strength is admitting when you are. The vision shifted. I saw myself recording videos again, but not attack videos, testimonies, interviews with people who'd experienced the inexplicable, not to mock them, to witness them. My channel had a new name, The Frequency Project. Same subscribers, different mission. Another shift. I saw myself at a gravesite, my mother's, placing flowers, crying without shame. Finally grieving properly after 23 years of toxic strength. You have work to do, the presence said. The void is full of people who think like you did, who built walls so high they can't see the door. You know where that door is now. You can show them. I don't want to leave you, I whispered. You never will, she said. I'm not in heaven, Julian, I'm in frequency. And now so are you. You'll feel me every time you choose connection over being right. Every time you let someone believe in something beautiful instead of tearing it down. That's where I live now, in the choice. The light began to pull away, or I was being pulled back toward the grey, back toward the trapdoor, back toward that broken body on a hardwood floor. I'm not ready. You are. And then the most violent thing I've ever experienced, re-entry. Imagine every nerve ending in your body being plugged back into an electrical socket simultaneously. My chest seized, crushed inward like a car compactor was pressing on my ribs. I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. The pain was geological, ancient. The pain of spirit being forced back into meat. I heard voices, distant, urgent. We've got a rhythm, he's back. No, I wasn't back. I was trapped. This body was a prison after where I'd just been, heavy, suffocating, loud with sensation, the scratch of fabric, the burn of oxygen, the relentless thud, thud, thud of a heart that wouldn't let me rest. I tried to explain, tried to tell the paramedics I'd made a terrible mistake, that I needed to go back, but my mouth wouldn't cooperate. All that came out was a sound like a wounded animal. Someone was crying. Mrs. Chen. She was holding my hand in the ambulance, squeezing so tight it hurt, and I realized this was love. Inconvenient, messy, human love. Not transcendent, not cosmic. Just an old woman who didn't want her neighbor to end his journey alone. It was beautiful. And I wept. The depression came 3 days after I was discharged. The doctors called it normal. Brain trauma, chemical imbalance, close brush with the end. But I knew what it really was. It was the grief of consciousness that's tasted freedom being locked back in a cage of bone and time. For 2 weeks I couldn't get out of bed. Not because of physical weakness, because every moment awake felt like betrayal. I'd been there. I'd felt what existence could be, without ego, without fear, without the exhausting performance of being Julian Mercer. And now I had to be him again. Sarah visited, my ex-wife. We hadn't spoken in 4 years. She sat on the edge of my bed, didn't say much, just stayed. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. You're different. Your eyes are different. I saw something, I said. Something I spent my whole life saying didn't exist. Was it God? I thought about that. Thought about the light, the presence, the frequencies humming with intentional love. I don't know if it was God, I said. But it was real, and it was nothing like what I said it would be. I was wrong, Sarah, about all of it. She smiled, not smug, relieved, like she'd been waiting 20 years for me to say those words. That's when I understood my mission. I didn't need to become a preacher, didn't need to join a religion or start chanting mantras. My mission was simpler and harder, to live with an open hand instead of a closed fist, to let people believe in beautiful things without needing to prove them wrong. To understand that mystery isn't the enemy of truth, it's the essence of it. The void taught me that isolation is a choice we make one thought at a time. And connection? That's a choice too. I'm still here, still making videos. But now when someone tells me they felt the presence of something greater, I don't laugh. I ask them to tell me more. Because maybe, just maybe, the strongest thing you can ever say is I don't have all the answers, but I'm listening. The void is real, but so is the door. And it's never locked. If you've ever felt isolated by your own defenses, if you've built walls so high you forgot how to let people in, drop a comment below. You're not alone. And the door, it's still there, waiting for you to stop arguing with it. Subscribe if this story made you feel something. Share it with someone who needs to hear that being wrong isn't weakness. It's the beginning of wisdom. The frequency is real, and you're already part of it.